Hello and welcome to the Sunshine Study. I'm Dr. Rebecca, the Lifejoy coach and author, and I'm here to help you be braver, wiser, stronger, and a bit more joyous with the help of my friend here. I love a lovely mug, and this was bought for me from my favourite teacher, and it has a little top to keep it warm. I just thought I had to share that with you. Lovely warm water there, so I'll just put that to one side. And I love gleeful things. And the reason I love gleeful things is because it keeps me childlike, but not childish. And I wanted to think about my childhood in a completely different way. And one of the things that I've done recently, which I hope will help you, is I put together a collage of all of my favourite moments from my childhood. It's a very important and profound exercise. Now, you may be a technical guru who can do a collage or some sort of technological thing that makes it all beautiful and wonderful. I did it in the old-fashioned way, was I went through photograph albums and seeing them. And I've seen these albums year after year after year. They have been a great source of joy and comfort to me. But I looked at them in an entirely different way. And there was one photograph that really stood out. And I'm about 4, maybe just starting school. And I had a little knitted red hat on that my mum had made me. And it's a very breezy day. I think I had somebody else's coat on. I mean, it had been pre-loved. It's like a little old-fashioned dress coat. And the wind was blowing it. And there's a picture of my mum with a cream mac on holding my hand. Now, I've seen this photograph thousands of times. But there was something magical about looking much more carefully. So I would suggest to you that you look as carefully as possible at the detail in your pictures. And the detail that stood out was not the breeze or the mac or the second-hand coat or the little knitted hat. It was that my mother had a hold of my hand with both of her hands. So my tiny hand was clasped in hers. And at 51 and without any children, my family are exponentially important to me, and I have been in many respects a parent to my mother in her illness. So the thing that I saw in this was her great love for me on a windy day was 2 hands around mine. So if you ever go and handshake somebody, how do you do it? And I noticed that with my husband, if he shakes somebody's hand, he puts the other hand on the other side, and it's exactly the same gesture. So I want you to think today about what you do with your hands when you greet somebody. Now, sometimes you may not shake hands, you may not feel it's appropriate, you may just wave or smile or give a thumbs up or whatever it is. But there's just something about what you do to express your affection and care, appreciation, your admiration, or just polite respect that really is important. Now, the other thing I wanted to say to you is that I worked as a Christian celebrant for a decade, and the thing that I did most of was loving funeral services. And I called them services of loving appreciation. Now, when you were outside the chapel, which I always did, and I always went out to meet my families and the cars, I was often out in all weathers, which was exactly like being that little girl in a coat that was breezy, except I was in a posher coat this time. And one of the things that I noticed was that I shook thousands, tens of thousands of people's hands. And I went up to everybody and I introduced myself and I welcomed them. And I often invited them inside because of the breeze and the cold, especially in the northeast of England. But there was an odd thing that developed with my wave, was that I would see dozens of people every day that I knew who weren't involved in my service, but had been in a service before me or a service after me. And they were just my work friends. They were lovely. They were such a blessing to me. And I couldn't give them a flamboyant wave. You know, they were a long way away to shake their hands. So we kind of developed this little wave that was just still down my hands. And it would be just like a little wave on the surface. People would just see that I'd acknowledged them, but I was still being professional. And I saw one of those work friends last week in a totally different context. And we did the same wave. And only we knew about it, but it was so endearing and so lovely. And then we explained it, that we had to be dignified, but we still wanted to be polite, and delighted that we could see each other. So I want you to think about your greetings to people. And there's a lovely one that often happens in church is they say, peace be with you. Isn't that gorgeous? peace be with you. So think about your symbols that you use with your precious hands. Think about all that they've done for you, all that they can do, all of the lovely movement. And if your hands and feet are sore or restricted or not working as you would wish, then we send you our love, but we also say, what can you do with what you've got? So if you think about that, one of the last things I want to say about our hands and our greetings is that when I was very little, my elderly granny, who looked about 150, but she was actually only 70, had very gnarled hands. They were not pretty, and they were covered in brown age spots. And I just thought, this is a sign of beauty. Those hands were my granny's, and I adored her, and I never thought about it. And until quite recently, I noticed that I had those same age spots on my hands, probably being sunburnt too much. And suddenly I felt a deep, deep connection to her. I was like her, just in the hands. I would like to be her, like her in the soul and the mind and the heart as well. But there was something interesting happened, that I was in a shop and somebody was trying to sell me something, quite pleasantly but quite forcefully. And they said, oh, look at your skin. You can do something with those age spots on your hand. You need to get rid of those. They're not visibly pleasant. And I remember thinking, oh no, they're my connection to Ivy, my granny, because I want to be like her. And it may not be cosmetically trendy or what everybody else wants or values or has, or we may all want to look like we're 20 again. But I'm so grateful that I have got to 51. By the time my mum was my age, she was very unwell. Ivy got to 93 and she was very unwell at the end. The last 13 years of her life were horrendous. So whenever I look at somebody's hands, I think, what have they endured so far? What have they facilitated so far? And how can I be like that in the very best of blessings? So I hope that helps, my friends. And you know, I often talk to clients about their hands in their unity and their marriages and their partnerships with their children, their aunties, their sisters, their cousins, their mothers, their best friends, whether we're waving or whatever we're doing. And I'm quite expressive with mine, so I have to keep them down when we're doing videos. But that you think about making points of connection with people. And then you sort of miss sometimes, don't you? But you keep trying. And with the people we value most, we make most connections. And we're always reaching and bridging. And then sometimes we have great, great unity. And sometimes we're absolutely as one. And then other times we'll come back up and we'll miss each other and we'll try again. And that life is like that dance of connections with our hands. So I hope today's been helpful. I hope it's made you look at what your hands can do, what they facilitate. If you've ever had an injured or broken thumb, you will realize how precious your thumb is, but also the goodness that's in them. Are they reaching out? Are they helping? And are they hoping? So if you go and look at your childhood photographs, which I hope you have, and if you haven't, start cherishing the few that you have. And if you don't have many of those, cherish the photos you have, because I think they're so profoundly helpful to our joy, our hope, our cherishing, our appreciating, and all of that builds courage, resilience, and wisdom. So I wish you many happy, happy photographs. And now we have so many options with tech, don't we? That I used to, take photographs with a manual camera, and we'd have to take them to the shop and wait a week. Sometimes you could pay lots of money and wait an hour and get them developed, but you never knew what you would get. And now we can edit and adjust and add and do all these amazing things. But sometimes the old shabby ones, which mine are very small squared, they've got rounded edges, they're a bit blurred. But the thing that matters most is that my hand was in my mother's hand and both of hers were wrapped around me. I wish you the same kind of blessing. Take care, my friends. God bless. Be safe. Please come back for our next video. If you would like, comment, subscribe and press notify, then you're with us and will increase our exponential life joy. Take care. God bless. Be safe.